Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I thought we'll go over a bunch of the data mines from the last week or so, basically because War Thunder is kind of in a little bit of a down period right now. There's no massive events going on, we're having a few little ones here and there for decals, we obviously have the authentic decals going on, the battle pass itself is kind of coming to an end, we have the history pages stuff going on, but no Legends of History events, and also the summer event is going to be coming in maybe a few weeks or so right now is kind of more of a chill period. This is kind of reflected in what you generally see when it comes to the community stuff. There is a lot of people getting a bit more agitated. It is amazing how if War Thunder doesn't have a constant stream of content over and over and over again, there is just a certain subset of the player base which goes ultra negative and aggressive very quickly. It's just really interesting to see in general. But I thought we would have a look at the data mines just because it does give us a few hints of what's going to be coming in the future, some change logs, and also some other little events which should be quite nice to see. And also, at the same time, it is worth always thanking Zabby for doing these things. You can find the links in the description of the video if you want to follow up with them. We won't be going over all of the changes, just most of the ones that I think are generally useful. The first change is kind of hilarious because it was one of those which was actually debated for the longest time. It was the vehicle renamed. So basically from the ZTL11 to the ZLT11. It seems like the decision cannot be made up of what this vehicle should be called, as if it matters and as if anybody cares. This is one of those non-issues that people like to bring up. Everybody knows what the vehicle is. Everybody just is making a big stink out of where two letters are placed, especially since the vehicle itself doesn't specifically have that name. If anything, they should just change it to a Chinese insignia name, and then it would just shut everybody up. But I'm happy that we always pick battles which are completely useless to actually fight over. I'm really happy that this is one that people have been going on for a long time, because it definitely has a big impact on the game and not a waste of time. Then they did a bunch of sound changes for aircraft engines. For me, I think they lowered the distance of them, or at least it feels like they did when it comes to contact. So you can get jumped on a little bit easier now. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish it was the opposite. But hey ho, generally you just have to kind of adapt and overcome. It just means that I personally am going to get shot a lot more, because I'm not very good at hearing these things. Then, also at the same time, they did some tournament text changes. Session has been changed to schedule, which is kind of interesting. The way that tournaments are integrated into War Thunder is actually really cool, where you have the separate website portal where you can sign up, and then it actually pings you in the game when, you know, the battles are ready to go. It's a really smooth system. It's one of those things that doesn't really get talked about a lot because it's not a huge scene. But if you are interested in that stuff, I would highly recommend going to the website and, you know, having a look at what tournaments are on offer. It's a great way of getting some GE and also just getting some competitive experience in some of the different modes, including stuff like Naval, which, you know, generally doesn't have too many competitors, so you can usually get something out of it pretty quickly. The RWR flare mod description typo has been fixed, so now it actually says what it's supposed to. And also the avatars which were hidden are now, which can be bought on the marketplace, are now no longer hidden. These are the furry decals, so the fox and also the bear that they've talked about. So the underwater travel range calculation for shells is now more gradual, so instead of being more binary, which is really nice. And also they've changed a few different challenges, such as the IS-2 Ace Tankman and the Invincible IS-2 Tankman challenge. They can now be completed with the new IS-2, the number 321, which was in the Legends of History event, which was around. Also, the F2H2, the Demon, the F9Fs, and also the F11F1 can now take off from the carrier in test flights, since they're obviously naval aircraft. This is something that they also changed when it came to Generally, they're generally what they're labeled as, naval fighters instead of other. And then also they've changed a few minor things when it comes to icons and also the loading screen stuff. So the F3D1, the 2,000 pounds icon on the loading screen has been changed. Also, on all of the rockets, guys, there's been a lot of vehicles which have had that bug where it was basically showing the rocket pylons, but obviously they shouldn't do because there are no rockets mounted. Luckily, that's kind of been fixed now, or at least hopefully fixed. They changed the BMDs and the BMP3's barrel thickness on the 100mm from 5 to 35mm, so it's going to be a lot harder to take out. Generally, you shouldn't be shooting there on the BMP anyway. You should kind of be shooting anywhere else because it's super lightly armored, so you can take it out really easily with pretty much anything. So the IT-1's launcher HP has also been decreased from 300 to 200. For me personally, one of the issues with the IT-1, the IT-1's a really fun ATGM launcher because it actually has armor and you can go hull down, which is not the case with a lot of ATGM launchers. But one of the things that is the problem with it is if your barrel gets knocked out or, your launcher gets knocked out, then you can't fire, which makes sense. But the actual reload for the launcher is insanely long compared to the standard repair on many other things. I think it should be standardized to how long it takes to repair barrels, because on the IT-1 you also have to load the ATGM, and also the ATGM is pretty slow, and the reload's not the fastest either, so yeah, it's definitely a bit of an issue for the vehicle in itself. They also changed the vertical gun limits to the RCV, basically above the engine, by the way, so they basically gave it a bit more depression, so it can shoot downwards. The Marlborough, the ship, its hull HP was increased, and also some of its breaches ideas were changed. The critical water levels were also increased. The shells and charges of the 4th main turret. The Gabbiano, the dead zone of the left torpedo launcher, was fixed as well, so it shouldn't be limited now. And now the GBU-12B, the KB-500LFE, the BGL-400, and the BGL-1000, the lock-on range is down, so it's now 7 kilometers instead of 10. The field of view has been reduced to 20 degrees. The gimbal limit has been decreased to 0 degrees, and the track rate has been increased to 10 degrees per second. So these should be harder to use compared to before, which is a little bit rough, but we'll have to see how they do. Also, all 12.7 plus millimeter naval HE types will now fuse on the water, so you have to make sure to hit the target now instead of just around it. And the 203mm Ansaldo, the gun, also the delay on the APHE-BC fuse has been increased by 0.02 seconds, so it should be a bit more deadly now. They changed some stat card images and also some tech tree images, weirdly enough. So they changed the stat card ones for the Kicker, the ZTZ96, and the ZTZ96AP. They also changed some tech tree images for the DO 217s and also the folders themselves. So obviously they're updating them, just making them look a little bit nicer, which is always good. Don't know if it was kind of required. The Kicker one, I think, kind of was required. But the rest, probably not. But at the same time, the new ones do look better than the old, and do look quite nice. Basically, the reason why the Kicker one's a bit odd is because you can actually see its RATO, the rocket-assisted takeoff, actually attached to its image, and obviously you're supposed to use that while you're on the ground taking off. So getting rid of that in the picture makes a bit more sense. So it does look quite nice though. The helipads have also been moved on Spaceport. Hopefully they're not as annoying. There are certain maps which have really, really annoying heliport areas. One of them is Spaceport. The other one is, of course, surroundings of Volokholamsk, where if you're on the southern side of the map, then the and you are from the left-hand side, the helipads can literally just spawn and kill you straight away after their first spawn if they get a cap. It's one of the most infuriating experiences in the world. I wish it wasn't the case. But hey ho, that map exists. Someone made the bright idea of bringing it back into the game. No idea who it was, but I think it might be worth reassessing that decision. It is easily the worst map apart from maybe Corellia. When it comes to the next data mine, one of the things that happens is added a pop-up connected to the email binding texts that were there before. The texts are only in Russian. It advertises a one-time 50% on G purchases in the store for those who have done the binding. So that's kind of interesting. The text was added when the war in Ukraine started and also concerns the states, mainly Russia. So it seems like they were going to do some kind of advertisement deal, but right now maybe it's kind of on hold, or maybe they're going to do it eventually. There's also a new decal for DMM. It's a Ferret bomber decal, and it looks absolutely cute as hell and would be lovely to see in the game, but it says it's a DMM exclusive, and the problem with that is it usually means it won't be able to come to the overall game. DMM is the kind of Japanese side of War Thunder. They've had a ton of events in their time of existing. They kind of have their own independent setup over there of how everything works. They have their own esports stuff. They have even sometimes their own Twitch drop stuff. And also at the same time, they get their own decals and special events. They've done some crossovers, like a Strike Witches event, which I know a lot of weebs really wanted to see on the international server, but unfortunately never really came. Hopefully at some point this Ferret bomber decal comes, because it looks really cute. In the next data mine, they fixed the hanger zoom controls. I don't think they did, though. I don't think it's fully fixed anyway. I'm having a bit of an issue with the hanger zoom, where if I'm outside of the client, running window borderless, it still zooms in and out, even if I'm looking at other things. So, don't think it's fully fixed, but at least it's getting there. And then we get an old friend, which is back. And some of you older players may remember this. And when we used to have changelogs where it literally just said this. Well, now we have data mines in the same way. Client stability improved. There is 2 separate data mines where client stability has just been improved. Lovely to see it back. We'll have to see at some point what that actually means. It would be, if you know how Gaijin does those Q&As, somebody needs to ask the question about what does that actually mean and get like a hugely technical, overcomplicated answer, which doesn't actually mean anything. But it would be nice to at least ask the question, Also, my client itself has been quite unstable, I think is the way to put it. It hasn't been in a great state as of late. There's been a lot of issues with it. So hopefully some of these changes do help it. Also, some more sound changes: aircraft effects, engines, aircraft weapons, event, naval weapons, tank effects, tank engines, tank weapons, and also tailspin have all got sound changes. So we're going to have to see how that affects all of them. Also, the target tracker code changes. There was also TWS target opacity changed, and stat cards not taking into account weaponry fixed as well has been also fixed. They also added some new SPAs to the 6780 bracket on the following maps. For tank assault, for the Ardennes, you've got the M163. For Japan, the Type 87. For Kursk, the ZSU-37-2. Maginot, the AMX-30 DCA. Mozdok, the Gepard 1. Sinai, the Falcon. And then also at the same time, one of the things that's going to happen is we are going to have a little mini event for Bastille Day. And as somebody who spent a decent time in France, Bastille Day is always a fantastic day. It is on the 14th of July, by the way, so on Thursday, so make sure to have a look at that. They might bring back some vehicles for France, or maybe they will just, have the decal for us. But there'll be like one of those play 3 battles with France and get yourself this decal. And it's quite a nice little one. I enjoy it quite a lot. So always a fan, as I said, of Bastille Day. It's just a wonderful celebration to be part of in general. If you ever plan on going to France, Highly recommend doing it around Bastille Day. Even in very small towns and stuff like that, they do wonderful celebrations around the event. They're also doing a ton of changes to autocannons when it comes to their rearming time. So rearming time on capture zones has been halved for 23 and 25mm guns. It is now 0.1 seconds instead of 0.2. And then there also seem to be standardizing a lot of autocannons' belt rearm times, so putting them down to 20 seconds, which is a lot lower than what they were before. So, for example, something like the Sergeant York actually had a rearm time of 224 seconds. Now it's going to be down to 20. Same with stuff like the ZSU-23-4 and the ZSU-37-2. This mainly affects a lot of AAs at high tier, but not just them, it also affects stuff like the BMD-4 and the BMP-2, the Term 3, and also stuff like the Leopard 2K, which has, of course, the top-mounted 20. So a lot of these vehicles will have 20 seconds, and that is pretty nice, actually. I don't think there's any that are increasing here. They're all decreasing. Actually, the Term 3 is increasing from 10 seconds to 20, but all the rest are going from massive amounts of seconds down to 20 seconds. This should be a lot nicer for people. Also, the ZSU-23-4, the lower guns can now fire asynchronously, so basically at a different rate, at a different time to the other guns. So very similar to what they've just done with stuff like the M19 and the M42, you'll be able to create a better field of fire, which will be quite nice. The PGZ-04A as well, the inoperable IR projector has been removed. The autocannon belt size has been changed. So basically, it used to be 163 and then 95. Now it's going to be 652 plus 380, which goes to 1032. So they've pretty much, it's very close to times 4 the amount of ammunition that's going to be in that thing, which is going to make it a lot better. The main thing, though, is you're going to be able to bring a lot more of the APDS, 380 compared to 95. Also, the box ammo in the hull sides is no longer, it has thickness, so it should be a bit easier to kill the thing. Also, the Macbeth, which is the upgraded M163 for the Israelis, the vertical limits for it have increased in the elevation and decreased in the depression. So only -5 on the depression, but 80 degrees on the elevation. So overall should be a slight buff to the vehicle. Also, for the 30mm HSS-831, the APDS belt order has been changed. So now, instead of being APDS SAPI SAPI HIT, it's going to be SAPI APDS SAPI HIT. So it won't probably change too much, but at least it is there. Also, they've changed some translation stuff in Chinese. They've also done some further esport and tournament code changes on it as well. Probably going to have an esport event pretty soon, like a big one. They usually do 2 or 3 a year. The F4U4, the incorrectly shown bomb pylons have been hidden. The PE-8 bombs are now dropped separately in all loadouts, which will give it a bit of a buff, even though most people just use the Megaton. The Yak-1B, the incorrectly shown rocket pylons have been hidden, so they're slowly but surely catching all those vehicles which have that issue. And it seems like they're hitting them scattershot, which kind of worries me, because it means that whatever caused this probably isn't just a linear thing, or at least isn't able to track. Like, they don't know what the source of the issue is, so therefore they're just trying to find out and fix the problems as it goes along. That might not be the case, but generally when this happens, when you see like the same solution used over and over again in different parts, it generally means that the source of the issue hasn't been fixed. The Super Mr. B2, the duplicate AA-20 loadouts now have AS-20s, so you can bring AS-20s or AA-20s with that thing. Super Mr. is a bit of a rough vehicle, not my favorite, but not the worst. The Milan 01, they've changed the icons on the loadout screen, and the HKP-3C, now the horizontal optical limits have been increased in the depression arc, so it should be able to shoot lower than it was before with those very slow missiles. The Frank Knox is getting itself a track radar, and also the Admiral Hipper's fire director animation has been fixed. The Sverdlov breaches have also been changed, and the Garland, the depth charge release location, has been fixed as well. And also the 30mm geared M781, the stock and spaded accuracy have been swapped, which this has actually happened in the past with a few guns. Basically what it means is if you actually unlock a modification, your guns get less accurate. And obviously the modification is supposed to do the opposite. So yeah, that's always hilarious when that happens. Hopefully it fixes this one here. But I definitely remember that happening in the past. One of the other things as well is with a lot of ground vehicles, the adjustment of fire thing never really used to do too much to it. But then they swapped it maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it's now a lot better. The last data mine as well from today, the S199 can now spawn 3 times in AB and ground RB, 2 times in SB without using backups. The 12-inch 45 Mark 10s and also the Mark 11s, the APC explosive type has been changed to Lyddite, and basically it should be a little bit better than what it was before. The 13.5-inch 45 Mark 5Hs, the explosive type has also been changed on them. So for the SAP CBC, it's going from Shellite to TNT, and the APCB, it's going from Shellite to Lyddite. And basically what this means is these rounds are going to get a slight buff in the amount of damage that they can do, which is always nice overall. That is all the data mines from the last week. As you can tell, a decent amount of stuff in there, and probably going to see in its fix pretty soon to go over pretty much everything. But as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman675, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Jerry Prevolt, Megadino King, Orange Tail, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Uncle Bean, Sem Arslan, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.